Yes. So, good evening and welcome once again. My name is Peter Ode. So, I'll be the expert trainer for this session. For the 8 weeks we are going to be doing on this program, you will be with me, and I will run us through all that it takes to be a quality hacker, a quality ethical hacker, right? So, for today, we will not be, delving deeply into most of the things we are supposed to know. What we'll just do today is the onboarding. We'll be onboarding us, telling us what is expected of us, what we need to do, the necessary rules and regulations we need to obey, and every other thing that we need to do to make this class a successful one. Also, this program is brought to us by Cyberspace Support Initiative. It's actually a non-profit organization, a group of young guys like myself and you, trying to see how we can support ourselves over the internet space so that we all can be safe over the space. So that is what CSI stands for. And I am one of the expert trainers with CSI. So I'll be walking us through this journey. Also, just like we have told us before now, there are actually some regulatory and compliance measure we all have to take. The knowledge we'll be gaining from this class should not be used for any malicious purpose. It's actually for educational purpose alone. And that is why during the course of the class, we are going to show us how to, set up our own sandbox, our own, lab within a particular our own system, so that whatever practice or practicals or hands-on that you'll be doing will be done on that lab, so you don't have to cause problem to somebody else's network. Just like I always tell us, if you are doing this and the moment it gets across your network, you do anything across your network, it therefore means that you are actually either committing a crime or you have an indemnity clause that covers you to do that, right? So the skills and whatever we'll be learning here should not be used for malicious purpose, right? It's actually only for educational purpose, right? So please, whatever you learn, just please keep it within the confine of the lab in which we are going to show us how to set up, right? And then also, like I told us, today is just our onboarding. I know most of us are quite familiar with the time. The timing for these sessions or for the entire sessions will be between 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. I believe that is when most of us will be back from our jobs. And then we will want to, at least learn something before we go to bed, right? So it's actually it's quite a beautiful time for us to do this. And in our first cohort, we did it in 2020 during the COVID, and I believe majority of us that are here also participated in that cohort, right? So and the time we actually did that was always 9 to 11, and everybody was comfortable with that. So we'll be doing that within this time, 9 to 11 on Fridays and 9 to 11 on Saturdays. Although that of the Saturdays, some people suggested that we should move it to 10 to 12, but we are still considering that if we get more, more people subscribing to that, then we'll see how we can shift it to 10, right? But otherwise, we'll still maintain the 9 to 11 p.m. for the classes. Today is our onboarding. So I believe some of us are wondering why we are using maybe this particular channel. Actually, our plans, we always deploy several channels to see how we can, to help us carry out these tasks. We have a YouTube channel also, and most times we use it as a live, we use the live feature that is in the YouTube, because at times the class can get broader than what our Zoom link can take. So we'll use the YouTube live so that others can actually join via the YouTube link. So hopefully by tomorrow, as we proceed, we'll be doing this, maybe using all of these channels so that you can actually, join in with whatever channel that, suits you and, is befitting for you, right? So we'll be using several other channels. This is actually a free training. It's actually a free training. So please don't think anything is attached. Nothing is actually attached. It's free for all of us. And by the end of this training, I believe we should have a better understanding of what ethical hacking is all about. It's going to be a crash course. It's going to be a crash course because actually, like I used to tell some of the people that I've trained, that hacking is not something you do in 2 days, right? And it's not an exhibition. So those of us that are coming to class, don't think that we are coming to do an exhibition. We just set up a system and start hacking it, right? Hacking is actually a process. It's not a product, right? So you don't go to the market and buy it. It's actually a process. So we are taking us throughout all of these processes until you carry out a successful hack, right? And those of us that have done a little research, definitely I know you understand the various stages in hacking, right? So this class is semi expert. So let me say intermediate level, knowledge level is required for you to successfully be in this class. So you should have had a little knowledge on networking, a little knowledge on programming, and also the concept around cybersecurity, right? So it's expected that we have all of these requirements, this knowledge, because most of the things we'll be talking will not be going back to the basics. We'll keep it at the intermediate level. And as such, I expect that when I am talking about something, I say a class of IP address, I believe you should know what that is, right? Also, maybe with time, we are going to, launch out the cybersecurity essentials where we'll have to handle all of these things. But for this class, it is actually an intermediate level knowledge is actually needed for you to succeed in this class, right? So you need to understand your network very well, IP addressing, classes of IP addressing, subnet maps, all whatnot, right? You need to know all of that. And you need to know a little concept around coding, a little concept around coding, right? So that the class will not be too boring for you. Then also we'll look at Kali Linux, right? Most of us are familiar with the Windows operating system, but in this class, we'll delve into other operating systems, right? Because for you to be an ethical hacker, you don't need to limit your knowledge to what you know about Windows, right? If we are looking at Windows, we look at some technical aspects of Windows, the Windows operating system, where I know we don't normally, visit on daily basis, right? So we'll still do that and look at that. But what we'll be using for the entire course, right, will be more on the Linux kernel, the Linux operating system, the Linux-based operating system. So whether it is Red Hat, whether it is Ubuntu, whether it is Kali, Parrot, Backbox, whichever one that you can lay your hands on, we are going to be leveraging on them. So we are going to also show us how to get them downloaded so that at least by tomorrow, as we continue the class, we would have all of these things, available on our system so that we just go on and do and start the work, right? I told us this class is not going to be talking. So I'm just taking my time to explain all of these things today for us so that by the time we start getting our hands dirty, I know that it will just be you chatting, me responding, and then giving us tasks, and we are carrying them out, and then we are achieving what is meant for us to achieve, right? So from after today, we'll not be doing more of the talking. We'll be doing actually the hands-on. So we need all of these tools set up. And before we drop the call today, we are going to walk us around some of these tools that we'll be needing, right? So the Kali Linux operating, or the Linux-based operating system is actually going to be one of the most important or basic operating systems we are going to be using. So Yakubu Yusuf, you can go ahead and ask your question. I can see your hand is up. Yusuf Yakubu, you raised your hand. You want to say something? Okay, so please, if you want to, say something instead of interacting us, you can just drop it on the chat box, and we're going to see that and then comment on it, right? So I will take time and go through our chat, the messages we have, and then see the ones that we can respond to, right? So that we don't have an interruption in the class as we continue, right? So thank you very much, Yusuf. So like what I was saying, we are going to leverage on several operating systems. And even if we want to look at the Windows operating system, we'll be looking at some technicalities around the Windows operating system, maybe in our later days, right? When we want to look at forensics, because definitely as an attacker, before you can clear your tracks or cover your tracks, you need to have a little knowledge of digital forensic, right? Need to have a knowledge of forensics, understand where all of these things are actually hidden. So for those of us that are not used to the Linux operating system, this class will be covering, that part, right? Will also teach us the Linux operating system. That is one of our, content in the class, right? So you will learn it, right? It's part of it. You have to learn it. But like I said, you need to understand or know that there is a different operating system than the Windows operating system, which is a Linux-based operating system. So we are going to teach us how to use them, right? And walk us around them. But like I always tell some of my students, the class is going to be, a class that you have to be patient enough to learn, right? Because it needs your patience. It needs you to conduct a lot of research, right? And it needs you to have good internet network, right? It needs you to have good internet. It needs you to, conduct further research, because, you will not limit your knowledge to what you're going to learn here alone. And also there will be tasks that will be given to us that you have to, spend time to do, right? And if you are to do that, definitely you have to conduct some research. And also you have to be patient, in the sense that there are some people that, might not understand or might not be able to grab things as fast as you can, right? So we need to, carry them along. So you have to be patient with the class. So if you have a higher IQ, that you understand things better, you have to be patient with some of us that don't understand things the way you do, right? And there are some of us also that have a better knowledge on some of these things that we'll be talking about, right? So you allow others that don't have that knowledge to also learn. So what we'll be running us through, a brief overview on networking. We'll run us also a brief overview on, programming, right? But when we are looking at programming, we'll be looking at just, bash scripting, and then Python. So those are the two programming languages we'll be looking at, right? Then we delve into the proper information gathering, where we'll expose us to quite a number of tools, right? Quite a number of tools that you can use to gather information. Now, those of us that have read a little about hacking, right? Or ethical hacking, as the case may be, we understand that the major aspect of, carrying out a hack is in the information gathering, right? I think over 60% of the success of your hack depends on information gathering. In fact, gathering information alone has completed the job for you, right? So if you are to maybe go and break into somebody's house, at least you knowing that at this point in time, the person will not be around, where the door is not always locked, you know, where whatever you want to pick from the house, you also know the location where that stuff is. You know, it makes the job easier for you, right? So that is why we always emphasize on information gathering before you carry out any, you know, sort of exploitation or hacking, as we all know, right? So we will walk us through stages and we'll walk us through types of, you know, hackers. Like I told us, all what we'll be doing is going to be practical based, right? So it's going to be practical based. And just like I said, the types of hackers, what we are doing here, we don't want to fall into any other category except the white hat categories of hackers. The white hat categories of hackers are hackers that do hacking for good, right? For instance, they can conduct what we refer to as penetration testing on your organization, right? To, you know, pinpoint or get out all the vulnerabilities and, you know, the techniques in which the bad hacker, which is the black hat hacker now, can, you know, use to, you know, penetrate your system. They can, you know, get all of these flaws open and present it to you, and also help you block them so that this, the bad hackers will not be able to hack into your network, right? So what we are going to be looking at or learning mostly will be around the white hat hacking, right? Which is synonymous to being a penetration tester. What is expected of you, right? If the organization invites me to conduct maybe a penetration testing on the organization infrastructure and you are asked to supervise me, right? What is expected of you to do, right? Or if you are the person in charge of conducting vulnerability assessment and penetration testing in your organization, what is actually expected of you to do? Because most times it is good for you to do both the internal penetration testing or ethical hacking, right? And then the external one where you invite an external person to come carry out that exercise on your organization. So if all of these things happen, what is expected of you to do, right? So we'll be looking at all of those things in detail, right? And everything we'll be doing is going to be hands-on, right? So that is that for that. And I guess we understand all of those things I've said. If there are questions and you need clarifications, just like I told us, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and drop them in the chat box, right? Drop them in the chat box. I'll look at them and then we respond to them. So in the absence of none for now, I will want to walk us through some of the tools we need to, you know, acquire by tomorrow so that we can start our class. And like I told us, we're starting by exposing us to the new operating system in which we told us we are going to be using at the course of this class, which is the Linux-based operating system, right? So for us to be able to do all of these things, we need some techniques also. One of such techniques is virtualization technology, right? Virtualization technology. So what virtualization technology does is, I told us we'll do a lot of research, right? So when you hear me say some terms that you don't understand, just maybe write them down and try to, you know, look at them, right? Maybe on Google or something, right? So that you understand. So virtualization is one of the techniques we'll be using, we'll be deploying for this course. And for us to be able to carry out virtualization effectively, we need to download a virtual machine. So I'll walk us on how to go about downloading a virtual machine right away, right? So permit me to share my screen. I guess we can all see my screen. So the virtual machine we'll be using is the virtual box, right? The virtual box. So we have several types of virtual machine. One of them is the Oracle VM. That's the Oracle Virtual Box. So this is what we will be using. So what you just need to do is to just search VirtualBox and it takes you to your searches. So you look at the first one that have virtualbox.org. That is the actual URL for the VirtualBox we'll be using, right? www.virtualbox.org, right? And also as a security person, I believe you should also take note and know that when a website has HTTPS, it means there's a sense of security around that website. We are not saying that it might be secure, but there's a sense of security there, right? So you just go to the VirtualBox. This is the authentic website of the Oracle VirtualBox. You navigate there, and then when you get to the website, you just hit on this, the download button here, and you download this tool. It's about 200 plus megabytes, right? So go ahead and download it. Is that okay? Now, this is the first thing. I actually have mine, so I'm not going to download again, right? So this is the first thing you have to download, right? For us to be able to carry out this class effectively. Now, the Oracle VirtualBox also needs us to download, what's it called? Something like, a drive that enables it to function properly, right? And that is the Microsoft Virtual C++ drive, right? So we need to also download that, because when you download this, especially for those of us that have not done coding before or that have not written Python codes before, when you download it and try to install it, it will prompt that you download the Microsoft Virtual C++ tool, right? So it's actually a small tool that we can actually download and make use of, right? So I'll just go navigate to the next tab and then see how I can do that for us. So let me do that. So I say we download. The next tool is the Microsoft Virtual C++ tool, right? So you can see I just typed it and it came out. So you just search for Microsoft Virtual C++ redistributable download. So this is what we are to download next, right? So after you download your Oracle VM, please don't go ahead and install it. Pause for a while until you have downloaded this. Now, this is, if you read through, it'll tell you that it's a runtime library. It's actually a library that has some of the tools that will enable your Oracle VM to run effectively on your PC, right? So you have to download it, right? So for those of us, depending on your operating system, you can download any of them, right? So if you're using an ARM, machine, you download this. If yours is supports the x86, you download this, and the x64, you download this, right? So most of us, I believe most of us today are using that of the x64. So go ahead and download this, the third one that is here, and install it on your machine first before installing the Oracle VM. So I have all of that downloaded already on my PC. And that is why I am not going to download them any further. But I believe we understand the technique here. The first thing is to, excuse me. So the first thing is to come here, download the VirtualBox 7.0, then go ahead and also download this redistribution package, right, of Virtual C++, right? So, and I advise you get this. I think this is the one that works for almost all of us, right? So get it installed. So you can install the both of them on your PC, right? All of these are things we need to do before tomorrow, before we meet tomorrow. So those of us that are here, I believe as I'm opening them, you should also be trying to, download them on your machine, right? Also, I know some of us might have some challenges with maybe some of us have already installed the VM, or maybe we have virtual machine. That's the VMware itself, because there are other, hypervisors that we can actually use, right? So Oracle VirtualBox is one of them, right? But for the scope of this class, we'll be using this Oracle VirtualBox. So whether you have the VM workstation and the VMware workstation installed, please, you can still go ahead and install the Oracle VirtualBox, because that is what we are going to be using, right? So that is the second thing you download, right? So the third thing you will download is your operating system. So the operating system, like I told us, will be introducing us to a Linux-based operating system, right? So there are actually several types of operating systems that are Linux-based. One of them is Ubuntu, one of them is Kali, there is Red Hat, there is Parrot, there is Backbox, and so many of them, right? So for this class, we'll limit ourselves to just two, and one of them will be the Kali Linux, right? So you just go to kali.org. Kali is spelled K-A-L-I, right? .org. And when you go there, you see, you just, when you type kali.org, it takes you to the website. So you just hit on download, right? And it will take you to where you download any of the tools. So we have several types of Kali here, right? For different types of operating systems. If you want them in mobile, you go ahead and download. If you want them on your as a virtual machine where you just add it to your VMware, you can click here and download. If you want it as an installer image, you can also click here and download. Now, when you click on any of them, there you do some reading to know what they are, because we're not going to be explaining what each of all of these stands for. But just as the name implies, you can actually deploy it on your mobile phone, but not all mobile phones support Kali. So when you click on it, you notice that, or you see the mobile phones that support the use of Kali, right? So for the class, we are not going to be using the live code, but we are going to be using that of the virtual machines. So when I click on that, it takes me to this point. So those of us that are using VMware, you download this, but like I told us, we'll limit this class to just the virtual box, which is this. So it's about 2.7 gig here. I'm looking at this, the virtual box, which is in the middle, right? So you can go ahead and download this. This is 2.7 gig. There's also Kemo. Kemo is another, virtual hypervisor. That's a virtual machine also. So, but we are limiting our class to this. So you go ahead and download this, that is 2.7 gig, right? Okay, so yeah, we'll drop all of the download links on the group chat, right? So that those of us that are not here can go ahead and download that. So what programming language? So we'll be looking at, Bash scripting, Bash, B-A-S-H, Bash scripting, and then Python, right? So those are the two programming languages we'll be, looking at. I will not be looking at them in details. We'll just look at them, bit by bit, how we can, manage them through the course of our training, right? So we'll be looking at that. So I think those are the two items that have been raised on our chat, and it has been addressed. So we'll look at that, right? So go ahead and download this. Now, some of us have Kali, bootable Kali. Please mute your mic. Some of us have bootable Kali on our pen drive. Okay, so we'll not be using that for this class. What we will be, our scope will be within only the virtual box. So I will drop all of the links for us. Go ahead and download them. So Phil John, okay, so it's muted. Please mute your mic, please, so that you don't distract our class, right? So this is for Kali. You can also go to Ubuntu website and download Ubuntu, right? So these are all operating system or Linux-based operating system. So in Ubuntu, you can just click on download, right? And it will take you to where you can get the Ubuntu desktop. So the Ubuntu desktop is what we are actually downloading. So when you go to ubuntu.com, you click on downloads, and it will take you to the Ubuntu, to this page where you download the Ubuntu desktop, right? So all of these are what we are going to download by tomorrow. So like I told us, we'll drop the link on the group chat, then we can, get downloading them. So I have told us, for the sake of this class, we are scoping this class to just what I have explained, right? So we will not be using any other platform. So that why we are doing that is so that we will not have too much of challenges coming from different angles, right? We want to, limit ourselves to a particular scope so that everybody can follow and be on the same page, right? And even if you have a challenge, since it's something we'll be doing, we can easily, handle them, and every other person will learn from them. Because by the time we start moving out and looking at WSL and all of that, right? It will, others might be confused in the long run. So let's just scope ourselves within what we have just shown us, right? So for the operating system, the Linux-based operating system, we're looking at just Kali or Ubuntu, right? So we'll work us on the installation process of the both of them, right? So that is what we will need for a start in this class. Is that okay? So I'll still go ahead and share my screen further to show us what we need to do, right? When we get these tools downloaded, right? Because I want us to set up our lab before the class commences tomorrow. But tomorrow when we come, we'll still look at setting up the lab, right? Especially for those of us that might not have been able to, set them up, and those of us that will have challenges, because there are going to be little challenges that I think some of us will meet when we are trying to install all of these things, right? So I have explained virtualization, and I told us that we come to Oracle VirtualBox and download virtualization. Don't worry, there will be a material that will be prepared, and all of these terminologies will be explained in them, right, in that material. But that material might not come free of charge. It's actually a book, right? So, and, we'll actually give that out to us as we progress, right? So some of these terms will be explained in that material, right? So you can also, if you want the hard copy, it will be produced. You can have the hard copy and all whatnot. But for now, let's continue with what we have. So one of the techniques we are looking at is virtualization, right? And most times, some of our systems, let's take note, some of our systems, it is not all of them that supports virtualization, right? At times, some of them might be, there might be some security feature by our organization, especially those of us that will be using the organization system to carry out this task, right? So there might be some security features depending on how, aware your network or your security experts are in the organization, that might disable, virtualizations for you not to be able to run this, the virtualware that the virtual machineWare that you're going to download, right? So for us to be able to do that, you need to access your BIOS, right? You need to access your BIOS to do that. So we'll just see, let's go ahead and install. Those of us that will have that issue will explain what you need to do, right? For us to do that, right? So let me go ahead and then look at the tools that we have downloaded. I actually have these tools downloaded and I've installed them. So I'll walk us through what you need to do after downloading the tool. So permit me to share my screen further so that we can, look at that together. So I guess we can all see my screen. Okay, so I have my downloads here. And the first thing, like I told us, was for me to download the VirtualBox, right? And then I went ahead and downloaded the Visual Studio Redistribution, right? That of the x64. So the first thing you do after downloading, right, is to, first of all, double-click on the VC regist. That's the Microsoft Visual C++ kits that you downloaded, the library that you downloaded. That's the first thing you are going to install, right? So you can just right-click and then open, right? Or you just double-click on it and install. I have already installed mine. That is why I have this option. If you have not installed, you have the install option, right? So you go ahead and install that on your PC. So that is the first thing you are going to be installing. I believe we all understand that, right? So I will just close that and cancel out that since I've already installed that, right? So the next thing is to go ahead and install the virtual box, right? So you install the virtual box. I have also installed mine, so I'm not going to reinstall it any longer. Now, when you install the redistribution, that's the virtual C++2, that library that we talked about, the first thing I say we should install, which is this. When you install it, please don't expect to see any icon of it, right? It's actually a library to be stored in the memory of your system. So it's a library, you will not see it. But when you install the virtual box, right? This is the virtual box now. You will see the virtual box. Like you can see on my desktop, I have the virtual box installed already here, right? And you can see the name Oracle VM Virtual Box. So when you install this, you will see an icon. You will see the shortcut created on your desktop, right? So I will not install this because I have actually done that. And you can see it does not have option for me to install, either to repair or remove. So I've already installed that on my machine, right? But those of us that don't have that, maybe have not installed it, what you just do is click on it, go ahead and install, just your normal installation, right? You just click install and it gets installed and you have it on your machine. Now, those are the only two things you are going to install on your machine, on your laptop, on your desktop, whatever system you are using. Those are the only two things you are going to be installing, right? So I'll just cancel out that. I'll not install that. Now, if you look at my folder also, I have Ubuntu downloaded here. And if you come a little bit upward, you see me having the Kali, right? So actually this Kali that I downloaded is the Kali Live because I was to use it for another class where we have to make a bootable device on a flash drive, right? And that is why I have the Kali Live downloaded. But like I told us, the Kali we'll be downloading is the Kali virtual machine or VirtualBox, right? So this is the one we will be downloading, right, for virtual machines. So if you have this downloaded, it's actually you use a different techniques or a different way to load it into your virtual machine, which I am going to show us, right? So this is Kali Live, and you can see it's about 3.8 gig, which is larger, while the other one is, the Kali virtual machine. So it's actually a virtual machine. It's just for you to add it to your machine. So maybe also I'll go ahead and download that so that I'll also have that. And then maybe when we want to walk us through that so that it won't be a problem, showing us the two ways about how you can load that, right? So if you look at it, I have my Kali here and I have Ubuntu here. So I can load any of them on my system, but one of them is enough for you, right? One is enough for you. So we use either of them. Is that okay? Right. So you can see all what I have downloaded. So those three stuff are downloaded, but it is only this, the VirtualBox and the VC Reddit that are installed, right? So other things, I will not install them. So after that, after installing the VC Reddit, right, and also my Oracle VM, I will have the Oracle VirtualBox appear like this on my machine, on my laptop, right? So what I'll just do is to launch it by double clicking on it, right? So I'll just double click on it and I'll have this. Now, yours might not look the same as mine because mine has several operating systems already loaded on them, right? But when you launch yours, you will not have all of these machines. These are different operating systems that I'm using, right? You only have this tool and something like this. So all of these machines, you will not have them. I have 6 machines here already. I have Ubuntu, I have CyberOps Security Onion, I have Kali, Windows Server, I have Server, and also Ubuntu 4, right? I might be having this, but please don't worry about this. You will not have this when you launch your VirtualBox, right? You only have these tools, the tools bar, and also these menu icons that are up here. That is what you will be having, right? So like I told us, there are several ways you can actually get your operating systems in here, right? Those operating systems that you downloaded, you are not supposed to click to open any of them. What you just do with them is to just download them. By operating system, I'm referring to the Kali and the the Ubuntu that you downloaded, right? So you don't open them, don't click on them, just download them and leave them. The only thing you need to know is to know the path, that's the location where they download it, where you have downloaded it to, right? So most times it might be on your download. Some of us that have set our downloads default to be on our desktop, it might also be on your desktop, right? So you just know where you have downloaded it, right? And now, if you have that downloaded, if you don't, you will not have this. So you can come here and either import, new, or add an operating system. So these are the three functions you can do using your VirtualBox. The three functions you can do using your VirtualBox. I believe as this class is going on, some of us are downloading these tools already, right? So that you can be following us up, right? So you can either import, you can create a new, or add an operating system into your VirtualBox, right? Now, like me that have the Kali Live downloaded, so I want, if I want, okay, not Kali Live, I have the Kali Live downloaded now. If I want to, add it to my VirtualBox and make it an operating system on my VirtualBox, I'll use the new tab because it's actually a new machine entirely. Don't worry, tomorrow, when all of us have downloaded these tools, we'll still walk us through them, right? But just understand, right? The techniques involved here. You have your VirtualBox installed. So when you launch it, you have something like this, right? So the import helps you to import an appliance, to import what we refer to as an OVF or OVA file. Now, what an OVF or OVA file is used is, for instance, we are two experts working on a particular case, and you have your case sitting on your virtual machine, right? You want me to also look at it. You can export the entire virtual machine, right, to me, right? Then I'll just launch it from where I am and have exactly what you have or what we are actually working on, right? So that is what the export and import does. So when you export it, it is exported in an OVF format, right? You can do your research to know what OVF or OVA is, right? So that is the format it is, it is exported. So if you have that type of a file and you want to get it into your operating system, what you do is to import it, right? So somebody can build an operating system and export it, or work on an operating system and export it to you, right? So if that person exports that type of operating system to you, or you see any operating system with an extension of OVF or OVA, right? You can, go ahead and import it. So let's quickly look at OVF. I think that should be open virtual machine file or something. OVF, OVA, and OVF files. OVF. Okay, let's look at that. Differences. Okay, so OVA, okay, let's look at their meaning. So open virtualization format, right? Open virtualization format, that is OVF, right? Then OVA should be around either open virtualization something also, right? So when you see a file with this extension .ovf or .ova, you know that it is actually an exported file, right? So you import that type of a file. Is that okay? When you see a file that is an ISO file, it has an ISO, right? ISO, like my Kali that I downloaded, is an ISO file. If I look at it and go to properties, you see that it's an ISO file, right? This ISO file. Most times when you see ISO files like this, you use the new, right? You use the new to create them. So if you have, a CD plate or a disk plate and you want to load it on your virtual machine, you use the new. So the new is actually the main, way of, loading or creating a new operating system on your virtual machine, right? The new tab, right? So when you just click on new, it will tell you virtual machine name and operating system. So you go ahead and give it a name. For instance, if I want to load Kali again, right? I can just do this and say Kali 3 as the name, right? So the next thing is, for me, the folder, you leave it the way it is, because actually this is a path. When you install your virtual machine, it will create a path whereby all what you'll be doing will be stored there. And this is the location of that path, right? So there's no need changing it. Leave it the way it is. The next thing is to select the image, to select the ISO image that you downloaded. But those of us that will be downloading the Oracle, the VM from Kali, right? You will not use this way to do that. Those of us that will be downloading this, you will not use the way I'm using now for this. But those of us that will be downloading this, right? You use the way I am using now. What I am showing us now is what you use to load your Ubuntu, right? But those of us that also have Kali, that is not a virtual box or a virtual machine type of Kali, right? You can go ahead and use the pattern in which I'm showing us now. You can use the new, right? So let's take it one step at a time. Download your Kali Linux. For those of us, or download your Linux-based machine rather, for those of us that will be downloading this, right? I will show us how to load them, right? But like I told us, there are actually several other machines. So some of us have some other type, right, of the operating system, right? So if you have all other type of the operating system, you definitely use the new tab to create your virtual machine. So after that is downloaded, I told you don't open it. What you need to do is to know the location. So the thing you just do when you get here, you can come to this arrow button that is here, right? If you do this on your own, you might not be having all of these machines because these are various machines I've loaded. So you'll be having the order folder, right? That display a window for you to, you can select different files. So go to it. For instance, if you navigate to it, if you notice it takes me to my download, that's because I've been working with my download. Yours might take you to somewhere else, right? So what you just need to do is to locate the location where you downloaded that file. You understand? For instance, I have this Kali Live, and it is downloaded and stored in this location, the download location. So I'll just navigate to where it is, and then I click. When I highlight it, I'll open it, right? It will automatically load that Kali for me. And you can see the type has changed to Linux because it detected the operating system and it selected the Debian 64 for me, right? So leave everything at default and leave everything at default and just click on next. Don't touch any other thing except you have expert knowledge on virtual machines, right? You can toggle around them, but leave everything. For the sake of this class, just leave everything the way it is, right? And then click next, next, next until you finish. So if you notice, the Kali tree is being added to my machines here. Let me remove some of these machines so that you can see it. So the Kali tree that I created is now here, right? It's now loaded. And if you also notice, it has started running. It's trying to install or to start itself. or rather it's telling me to start it, right? So this is my Kali tree that I just created. What we need to do next is to go ahead and hit on the starts, right? So you go ahead and hit on start. So it will try to power up the operating system. It will try to power up the operating system, just like you can see here, right? So it powers up my operating system. It takes a little time to power that up. But just know that what is happening here is just like you pressing the power button on your computer, and it is getting on, right? So that is what is happening here. So it's telling us that, okay, the virtual machine failed to boot. That might be caused by missing operating system and all whatnot, right? So when it tells you this, what you just need to do is to come to this arrow button under where you have the DVD, come to the arrow button, and either you go back and select from where you selected, or you just add it. Since I've already loaded it, I'll just select from here, right? And if you have added it during installation, you will see it listed here also, just like all of these ones are listed. So you just go ahead and pick what you have loaded, right? And then you mount and retry to boot it, right? So this is going to, boot to desktop, right? So you can see when it gets here, you just press the enter key, right? And it will boot to desktop until you have your Kali, powered on, right? Now that is one way of, loading Kali. And those of us that will have the Ubuntu now, there are other processes you need to do when loading Ubuntu, right? So, and I'll also show us some of those processes that you need to know to load Ubuntu, because Ubuntu, since what we are downloading is the Ubuntu desktop, right? So there are a little more complex steps we'll need to take to load Ubuntu, right? So I'm waiting for my Kali to come up, to boot up. While all this is happening, just don't touch anything. Allow it to boot to desktop, right? This is actually the boot process, the boot menu. I also did not tell us the other time, where one of the things or the prerequisite knowledge we'll be needing is that of the operating system. We need to also understand what an operating system is and how they work, right? So this is the boot process taking, happening, right, on our Kali machine. Now, operating systems and boot processes, or starting from the boot processes, you need to have a better understanding about that, because for you to be a proper expert in hacking, you need to know how these things work from scratch, from the kernel, right? So that even if you want to take privileges or you want to take advantage of the kernel, right? You have a foreknowledge of what the kernel is and how they work, right? Or they function. So you need knowledge about operating systems, right? And that is why we are looking at Kali. That was actually an oversight. So those are the three key things you need, right? The knowledge about operating system, the knowledge of networking, and a little knowledge on programming, right? Why I say a little knowledge, because most of us are scared most times when we say write a program or write codes, and it's quite boring when you are writing codes and it's not running, right? So most of us are scared about that. So you just need a little knowledge, at least understand the concept around that, right? So you can see that my Kali has booted to desktop, right? So this is my Kali desktop. I can, decide to, expand this, right? Can decide to expand this, right? You can see it all over, right? That this is actually an operating system sitting on another operating system, right? So that is what virtualization technology helps us to achieve, right? It allows you to load another operating system on another, right? So at this point in time, the Kali Linux operating system is what we refer to as the guest operating system, right? why the Windows operating system, which is my actual Windows machine that I'm using, right, is the host operating system. So my Windows machine is actually hosting the Kali machine. And why this is good is it also allows us to toggle between these operating systems easily, right? And like I told us, we are doing all of this so that we can set up our labs within our own computer system, so we don't commit a crime by, carrying out any of our practice across the network, across our system. Because if you must do that, then you must have an indemnity clause, right, covering that action. So like I told us from the beginning, whatever you are doing stays with you on the system you are using. And that is why we decided, or that's one of the reasons why we decided to be using virtualization technology. Another reason is because it allows you to toggle easily around multiple operating systems. So you can see that virtualization is actually very sweet and it's good to use it, right? So this is my Kali Linux being enabled. So this is what will be where we'll be doing most of our practicals, right? So I'll go ahead and shut it down. I'll go ahead and shut the operating system down so that we can see how to go about loading Ubuntu. Loading Ubuntu will take us a little longer time, right? Because you need to go through installations. Actually, it's the Ubuntu desktop we have downloaded or that we downloaded, right? Let me go ahead and then do that, but I'll remove another operating system so that I can have space so we can see the board clearly, right? So like I told us, always know that before you add an operating system, the point where you have the tools have to be highlighted, right? Before you can add your operating system. Or you can still go through the file and you can import from here also, or you can come to the tools here, right? And you have other things here, right? So ensure that this is highlighted before you can, add your operating system. So let's go ahead for those of us that will be using Ubuntu, right? So you go ahead and still use the new tab, right? And then create your Ubuntu. Is that okay? You use the new tab, just the same process that I ran. Let's say we'll give this Ubuntu 3, right? When I come here, I want to select, what I'll be selecting is not the Kali Linux again, right? Since I have Ubuntu downloaded already. So if you download that Ubuntu we showed us, you have something like this. So just go ahead and then load it. So then you continue the same process, next, all through. Like I told you, you can toggle around this, right? But for the class, we will not be doing that except you have expert knowledge already or you have used this, right? What this actually does is to give you leverages on how to allocate resources to the operating system, right? So we are not interested in that, right? So if you have, a bigger system, so you might want to, increase the disk size that you want to give to your operating system, right? So you can do that while doing all of this. You can assign more than one processor to it and all of these things. So we'll not be looking at that. What you just need to do is to next until you click finish, and you can see that the Ubuntu 3 is here. And if you look to this point, it is powering up. So at times you might load the operating system and it will power up itself automatically the moment you are loading it, right? Or you can still go ahead and click on the start to power it up, right? So I guess we can also, so when you install Ubuntu and it gets to this point, so you use the try and install Ubuntu tab, right? Just hit enter, right? So it will navigate, it will load you to where you install the Ubuntu desktop. Actually, Ubuntu, like I told us, will take a little more time, but it's quite explanatory. What you just need to do is don't change too many things, right? just go ahead and follow the installation processes keenly and then install Ubuntu, right? I told us we'll be limiting our operating system to just these two so that whenever there are challenges, we can easily answer questions, right? So let's wait a while Ubuntu is loading, right? So let me look at what we have. So somebody is asking what of Linux? Now, understand the technique here. Linux is a kernel, right? So Ubuntu, Kali, Red Hat, whatever they are, Backbox and all of those things, they leverage on the Linux kernel. So when you say Linux, you're actually referring to a kernel, right? So when you say Kali Linux, now you're referring to a distribution of the Linux kernel. So like I told us, all of these operating systems are Linux-based operating systems, right? So whether it is Kali, whether it is Ubuntu, whether it is Red Hat, they are all Linux-based operating system, right? So when you say what of Linux, it's just like, I wouldn't know how to put that, but what we are using is actually Linux-based operating system. They are all Linux-based operating system. Somebody say, yes, what if you have Linux on Windows source system? Okay, now why we will not encourage that? I've told us that we want us to limit ourselves to what we are showing on. Now, Windows subsystem, if you have Linux or Ubuntu installed on them, they might easily crash your system memory or your operating system rather, right? It might, distort the working of your host operating system. The Windows source system Linux, right, is not well, how do I put it? The functionality is not well, how do I put it now? Developed, right, to withstand some of the type of things we'll be doing. And as such, it might, affect the host operating system. Now, let us also understand that, we didn't tell us on some of the importance of why we are using the Linux-based kernel, right, or the Linux-based operating system. Maybe tomorrow we'll look at that, or if there's still time, we'll look at that, right? So Linux is actually an open source, or Linux-based kernels are actually open source, kernel that are quite security conscious. And, it's actually been contributed to by several developers. So it's maintained by those organizations. We went to their sites to download them, right? So it is maintained by those organizations, but people contribute to them. Different types of people contribute their tools to them. So as such, it is highly secure, right? So as an hacker or as a cybersecurity expert, it is not advisable that you don't leverage all of your expertise on this tool. So it is advisable that you leverage all of your expertise on Linux-based types of kernel or your Mac OS, right? Because the Windows have its own flaws. And like we all know, it's a business-based type of operating system, unlike our Linux. And Linux also comes with some tools that you will need to, carry out all of these tasks, right? Now, let me go back to our Ubuntu. My Ubuntu is loading and taking me to the desktop already, and that is because I have it already installed before now, right? But for you that don't have yours installed, you have to go through a process of installation, right? To do that, right? So mine is also installing. I think this one I loaded now is trying to install itself. So, but it's going to take a longer time for us to finish up this installation process, right? But I know you will understand what it takes or what is involved, installing the operating system. We'll still be looking at it and try to see if we install, if we can install it within the time frame that we have, right? We'll look at that. But while that is happening, we'll also discuss some other things. So like I told us, the Linux-based systems, right, are quite, customized or designed for the particular, for this particular thing we are doing in class, right? For hacking itself, for cybersecurity itself, especially if you want to do the practical aspect of cyber security, which hacking is part of, right? So these operating systems are designed to aid this. So WSL, using your WSL might finally destroy your machine. So please don't use it. Just go ahead, download what we are telling us to download. Now, for those of us that are confused what WSL is, the Windows operating system has made available, we call it a Windows subsystem, whereby you can, run your Linux-based operating system, side by side with the Windows operating system. But now that is, you are running an operating system from within an operating system. So that is why I'm telling us that it can easily corrupt that operating system that is hosting it, and it is not advisable for us to use it in this class, right? Except and otherwise, maybe with time, if the feature is developed upon, right? So for those of us that may want to get the Windows operating system or the Linux operating system running on our Windows machine, you can actually go to your store, that's the Windows store, beneath your machine and get that, right? But please, it is not within the scope of this class. And like I have told us, we will not advise us to use that. So let's go ahead and load the VirtualBox and then install it. And that is what we'll be using for the class, right? So my Windows is still installing, is still installing. So we'll wait for that to install. I wouldn't know if there are questions you want us to look at. Please go ahead and drop them on the chat box so that we can take our time to look at them. Please, whatever you have loaded on your system is not within the scope of this class. The scope of this class is within what I have discussed so far. Download the Oracle VirtualBox, install it on your system, and then we load the operating system we'll be using on it. So those of you that will have, that wants to, leverage on other, techniques to carry out these practicals, if you understand them better, it is fine. You can go ahead and use them, you understand, but we will keep ourselves within this scope so that those of us that don't know some of them might be able to understand it as we are taking it from scratch, right? So Ubuntu is still loading, and this is how it's loading. I have not done anything yet. I have not touched anything. It is still loading. And so you have to allow it to load, right? Copy all the files before you can go ahead and install it. Is that fine? Okay, so I will want to give room for questions, but please drop them on the chat box so that we can look at them together. So somebody said, why do I need both Kali, Linux distro, and Ubuntu? We are not saying you need both of them. We say either of them, right? We say you can get any of them. And what we are doing is just, we are walking us through the installation processes. For those of us that will have Kali, this is what you need to do. And for those of us that wants to use Ubuntu, this is what you need to do, right? So we are not using the both of them, as in we are not, you don't need to install the both of them on your PC. You just need to have either of them on your PC, right? I guess that answers that question. So if there are other questions, please go ahead and ask them. So let me also throw more light on some of the things we'll be doing with Kali. Like I told us, it is actually a full-fledged operating system. So will show us how to interact with it, how to, do copy files, move from one location to another. We'll be doing all of that. Now, let's also know that we are going to unlearn the knowledge of the Windows operating system, right? We are going to unlearn the knowledge of the Windows operating system, right? And relearn that of the Linux operating system. It's always very hard for people to, unlearn and relearn, but we will be doing that in this class, right? We'll be doing that in this class. Unlearn. By unlearning, I mean you tend to forget about the Windows operating system and just think, okay, this is my first time of coming to of using the computer, and this is the operating system that is being shown to me. So what do I need to do? So we need to unlearn to relearn it, right? So we're learning the Kali, the Linux-based type of machine. And learning the Linux-based type of machine is going to be hands-on all through. So please forget the fact that I'm talking in this class. In subsequent classes, you will have your system on. As I am typing a command, you will also be typing that command, right? And we'll be, looking at them together, doing these things together. So mostly next time, we'll also advise us, okay, those of us that will be running, well, that is why we're actually using VirtualBox, so that you can be running your commands on your VM while you can still be watching what we are doing, so that you understand these things correctly. Okay, let me look at the questions we have here. Somebody say, okay, can you drop the link for us? I guess it's the download links, right? So we are going to drop all the download links in the group chat, right? So somebody's saying, okay, just to be clear, we are going to have this recorded class shared in the group. Actually, we have our YouTube channel already. So this stuff will be uploaded there, and then the link will be shared in the group chat for you to just click and watch them, right? So you can actually watch them on anywhere you want to watch them, right? So we are going to share this recording. Yes, we are going to share it so that those people that are not in class can also, partake or participate in what we have or we are discussing, right? So for some of us, for some of the use, okay, some of us using our organization system, do we need permission to download and install operating system? No, we don't actually need permissions to download, but I wouldn't know your organization, requirements, right? But you need to know the organization requirements if you are allowed to download and install tools on them, right? So if you are allowed, then you can go ahead and download. Why I made mention of the organization system initially is because some of us that virtualization might not be enabled on our PC might need us, it might require us to access the BIOS to enable virtualization. And if we must do that, then we should be able to have maybe information like maybe the BIOS setup password, or because if your security expert or engineer in the organization has put a BIOS password on it, then it means we'll not be able to access that BIOS setup, right? So that is why I actually mentioned that you are free to use it if your organization permits, right? But if we are doing some changes, you understand, that have to do with the BIOS, right? There might be a need for us to, require, some information about the system. So that is why I made mention of that, right? Okay, so Kali for me works faster than Ubuntu. For me, I prefer using Kali. And I also like using, Parrots, right? So there's another operating system, Parrot operating system. So I like using it. But like I told us, most of these operating systems are coined in a way that, it suits the person redesigning them, right? So you can decide to want to use Parrot, and Parrot might be for, for people that are into forensics, or maybe some of the tools that are within Parrot are critically for forensic examiners, right? So that is how it all works. I love Kali. I love using Kali, and that is what I use, right? For me, right? So I just said we should use two of them, Ubuntu and Kali, so that in case some of us likes Ubuntu, you can go ahead and maintain that. There's also Red Hat, which is also another nice one. You can go ahead and use that. So can I host virtualization setup on my Mac OS? Yes, of course. So you just search for the VirtualBox for Mac OS, right? And download it and install, and that's all you need to do, right? Just get that installed, and that is all you need to do. Is that okay? So we are still waiting for our, what's it called? The Ubuntu to load. We might not be able to wait for it all to load, but just know that I'm not doing anything with it. I just allowed it and it's working. It's doing its thing, right? And it will install itself, but it takes a longer time for it to install, right? So that is what we can have. I don't know if there are other questions or there are questions you need to ask, please let's know. Okay, the class is actually designed for 2 hours, Fridays and Saturdays, 9 to 11 p.m., right? I know some of us might be tired from work, but I believe this is actually the best time for us to fix a class like this so that we can, make use of our weekend very well. If we are doing this during the weekdays, I believe it will be too hectic for some of us that are working. So that is why we are using weekends for that, right? So that is it for that. Refresh the system while Ubuntu is installing. Which of the system are you talking about, please? We don't know. Is it refreshing your laptop, your desktop? Is this something like this you are talking about? I wouldn't know. Or which of the refreshing you are talking about? I wouldn't know, right? So that's that. Okay, do I need to restart my system to install this? No, you don't need to restart your system actually, because when we install that, you shouldn't, there's no need for you to restart your system. But if it's prompting you to restart, please go ahead and restart it, right? It depends on the type of operating system you are using. Otherwise, mine is just straight up. So when you install that, you can still go ahead. What you just want to achieve is to install your virtual box. So if you are finished installing this and it's prompting you to restart, you don't want to restart, go ahead and try and see if you can install your VirtualBox. If you can install it, that is all you need that application for, right? So normal refreshing of desktop, you can go ahead and refresh. Nothing is happening, right? Nothing will happen to what is happening or to what you are doing, right? So that is that. Also, let's also know that you need a good system, at least an i5 should do, right? So that you have speed. You will not be, I'm not saying you shouldn't use your older system, right? But please get a good system. Get a good system so that you won't be, since you are running multiple operating systems, one of the essence is to toggle between these operating systems. So if that aim is defeated, maybe because your system is now slow, or the resources are, too limited or are too small for the multiple operating systems to, run to run, then it means you have to, get a better system. So that is that for installing operating system. If you look at my virtual machine, I have several operating systems. Now I can decide to load this operating system and use it to hack another operating system within my machine. So I can launch two of my operating systems and use one to serve as the attacking operating system, while the other will serve as the target operating system, right? So that is why one of the reasons why we have these, enabled this way. Is that okay? We have the virtualization technology. That's why one of the reasons why we are using it, so that you don't go and target another operating a different person's machine, right? So I think with this we have had enough on lab setup. We'll still be adding more operating systems, like the Windows operating system. We'll have some added to our list of operating systems here. I know that it is just the Ubuntu operating system we have, and that of the Kali that we have tried to install, right? But we'll also see how we can load a Windows operating system on our virtual box, right? So that when we do that, we'll first of all see how you hack a Windows operating system, and then how you hack a Linux-based operating system. But before all of this is done, we will need to move from one step to another. So don't just expect magic, right? Don't expect exhibition that you're just coming to, break into a particular system. You can actually do that, but if you don't understand the nitty-gritty around it, you might find it difficult when you are faced with a real life scenario, right? So somebody is saying, can you please drop system config? Okay, we'll do that. We'll drop that in the group chat, right? So that is that. I don't know if there are other questions. Let's take them. If there are no questions, we'll stop the class here for today, since this is an onboarding session, so that by tomorrow when we meet, we can, start doing what we are expected to do. So can we rely on a Kali on a Dix for this program? Kali on a Dix, I wouldn't know if you are referring to maybe having Kali on, maybe you partitioned your operating system or your hard drive and you have Kali running on it. If that's what you are referring to, I wouldn't know. Or maybe you have Kali running on a pen drive as as a bootable device. I wouldn't know. But what I advised, or what I have been telling us, is that we should limit ourselves to the scope of downloading a virtual machine and installing it on our system, and then loading Kali Linux on it, or you load your Ubuntu Linux on it, right? And I have explained all why we need to scope this class, right? So that we don't have too many despair questions, and so that we don't have questions that will confuse other people, because there are some questions that will confuse other persons here, right? So we want to limit ourselves to the scope of downloading a virtual machine, installing it, and then loading an operating system on it. Is that okay? So your system runs Ubuntu. If your system runs Ubuntu, it's fine. Ubuntu can still serve as your host operating system, right? But please go ahead and install, virtual machine on your Ubuntu, so that we can have multiple systems. Like I told us, the essence of this whole thing is to have multiple systems running on a virtual machine. So no matter the operating system you are using, just ensure that you have a virtual machine running. And on that virtual machine, we are going to install several operating systems on them. One of them is the Kali Linux or the Ubuntu that we have installed so far. Is that okay? So we'll take other questions in the group chat. If you have challenges, please drop them. And please, the group chat will just be our mode of communication for now. Just like I told us, this is a free, class. So please, when you are posting things in the group chat, please let there be things that are relevant to the course, right? So that we don't, have too many things coming in the group chat. So can you place your screen on your download folder? I wouldn't understand what you mean if I can place my screen on my download folder. Okay, you want to see my download folder, I guess, right? I don't know if you can see it now. Let me do it this way. So what I have is this, and I have all of this also, right? So just go ahead and then do that. So like I was saying, let's not post gibberish stuffs on our group chat, right? And like we told us also from the beginning, we have a link, right, on YouTube. We also advise and encourage us. Some of you can follow us on our YouTube so that whenever there are things we drop there, you can actually, you actually get them and then get to do all of the things that we want us to do. So thank you very much. We'll draw the curtain here today. We'll still meet ourselves tomorrow by 9 p.m., right? So let's make it a date by 9 p.m. And by 9 p.m., what we are expecting of, or expected to do is to please, first of all, get all our tools ready so that when we come tomorrow, it's just to boot up and then we start our our class, right? So the YouTube channel, you can just go on to YouTube and search for Peter Ode. Although we'll drop that on the group chat so that you can see that. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel also, right? So we'll drop the link for us on the group chat. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful night rest, or bye bye for now.